So my wife, who knew I wasn't coming home, she wanted to see me before I left because I had found out they also indicted me in Florida. And she goes out and somehow she climbs over from the second floor and she gets down to the bottom floor. She gets in the car. They're all out in front. They don't see her. And she drives to the motel to where I am. Hey everybody, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. Everything is good on this end. Hope you enjoyed Mob Movie Monday yesterday, Goodfellas Part 2. Got great comments as usual, so thank you for tuning in. You know, today is something a little bit differently. A lot of people have been asking me about the various arrests that I have, and I have a pretty extensive arrest record. It's old, you know, I haven't been arrested in a long time. Praise God for that, but it's pretty extensive. I believe I've been arrested 17 or 18 times when I was part of that life. Some of the arrests I remember more than others. They were a little bit more sensational or memorable or whatever. You know, I happened to be talking to somebody about Roger Stone's arrest, and these just happened to be telling me, and this is what brought this up in my head, you know, the sensational arrest with Roger Stone that was really kind of overplay, whether you like Roger or not. You know, it's kind of overplay. Here's a guy that's never been arrested in his life. He gets charged with basically a white collar crime. I think it was perjury, whatever it might have been. And they go there at 5 or 6 in the morning. They got the media there. Obviously, you know, a number of law enforcement agents, FBI, they were trying to make a point. There was a big media circus. And sometimes they do that. And other times, not so bad. But, you know, when I go back in time and I look at the various arrests, the one that I remember my first one, and that was back in, I think, 1971 or 70. And it was when I was walking the line, the Italian-American Civil Rights League. We were picketing the FBI, Joe Colombo's deal, picketing the FBI on 3rd Avenue and 69th Street. And I remember at the time we used to get off the line. There was a lot of people there. The line had really grown. There were thousands of people. And I had gone across the street. There was a cafe there to get a cup of coffee, something to eat, whatever. And when I was coming back, I was walking with my mother and my girlfriend at the time, young girl. And I was about to walk across the street. And somebody drives by in a car and says, "Oh, you guineas," or something like that, which is the disparaging name for Italians. So I turn around, I said something to them, I don't know, as they drove away. And the cop looks at me that was standing there, a beat cop, and he says, "Shut your blank mouth." And I said, "What are you telling me to shut up for? You heard what the guy said." And he said, "I said, shut your mouth." And I said, "You heard what he called me?" And he said, "Yeah, well, that's what you are." And he repeated it. So I got a little bit upset. Boom, I throw a punch at him. Within about 10 seconds, I can't tell you how many cops were on top of me, hitting me with the billy clubs. And people, let me tell you something. That hurts. Those clubs hurt. And I'm down on the ground and I'm kicking and I'm fighting. My mother is screaming, so on and so forth. And they pick me up and they drag me across the street and they put me in the paddy wagon. I'm going to take me down to the precinct. Now, Joe Colombo happened to be there, and now the people from the line saw it and everybody starts yelling. And Colombo has the entire picket line surround the paddy wagon, so they couldn't leave. And it was kind of like a standoff. And I'll never forget, I'm in the paddy wagon and I'm pretty upset. And Joe Colombo was there talking with the police. And it must have been for about 20 minutes or a half an hour. And then Joey comes over to me and opens up the door of the paddy wagon and he says, "Look, they got to take you down because you hit the cops." He says, "But don't worry about it. I got it worked out. We'll get it straightened out. Barry Slotnick will be down there and they'll make sure you get out in a couple hours." Great. So they take me down there, and after a couple hours, I get booked, and that was it. And I get charged with disorderly conduct and resisting arrest, something like that. And it was later, you know, I think it was reduced to a misdemeanor, and then it was off my record. But I learned something at that point, people. When you're about to get arrested and when you're getting arrested, put your hands behind your back, keep your mouth shut, get in the car, and go square it away, because the cops will get on you. That taught me something way back when, and that was the first of many arrests that I had during the time, that I was in that life. I remember another time I was I was getting off my plane. I was coming back from Florida. I had already been, in the life. I was a made guy. I was in the gas business. I'm coming back from Florida, and I land at MacArthur Airport, which is where we had our plane. It's funny. I used to give jet fuel to all of the private airports in Long Island. So we used to be able to put our plane and our helicopter there. They didn't charge us. We gave them a good deal on the jet fuel. So I get off the plane, and there's about 15 agents. And I'm saying, what the heck is this? Franzese, you're under arrest. They're indicting you on a big racketeering charge. I said, what's the charge? They said, racketeering, rather. And we get in the car, and they start driving. And I asked the agents, I said, where are we going? I figured we were going to Brooklyn, the Eastern District, because that's where most of my activity was. And they were going to indict me on gasoline, or whoever the heck knows what was going on at that time, other things that I had going on. And they said, no, we're going into Manhattan. I said, Manhattan, for what? And they said, well, you've been indicted on a big racketeering case in Rudy Giuliani's district. He was the U.S. attorney there. And I said, what the heck happened in Manhattan that they're indicting me for? I said, I don't know anything about this. Long story short, that's the big loan sharking case, part of a RICO indictment that I was indicted on with Jimmy Rotunda, who was another guy from the Jersey crew, another captain. On trial several months, and that's the trial that I was acquitted in, found not guilty. But I had as much business being in that case as any one of you people watching me. I had nothing to do with it. And, the jury got it right. They acquitted 7 of us, and they convicted 8 guys. And the jury got it exactly right. The 7 that were acquitted, they should have been acquitted. The 8 guys that got convicted, they got convicted. So, but that was an arrest I remember. Another time, which, I'll never forget, is I had done my 5 years in prison, took a plea, did 5 years. I got out on bail. I was on parole. And some things had happened, whatever the circumstances were, not important. But I'd left my house in the morning. I told my wife I'm going to the bank right in Brentwood, California, near where I lived. And, I'd be home in a little bit. So I go into the bank, I do my business. As I come out, I see one of the agents that originally had arrested me several years ago. He was a postal inspector, right? Nice guy, Italian guy, I'll never forget. So I look at him, I see him walk in, and I said, his name was Jimmy. I said, hey, Jimmy, what are you doing here? Because I remember he was a nice guy. After the whole case was over, he said, Michael, when I retire, I'm going to move out to California. Maybe you help me out, maybe I find a job, whatever. I said, yeah, Jimmy, no problem. A really nice guy. So I said, what are you doing here? Did you retire? You want a job? And he says, no, Michael. He says, it's a little bit serious. I said, for what? He said, well, we're arresting you on a parole violation. I said, you got to be kidding. I walk outside. There's like 15 agents again, made a whole big spectacle. It was so embarrassing. You thought I was robbing a bank the way they did it. And they took my car away. They put me in the back of the car. And I said, look, do me a favor. My wife doesn't know, what happened. I said, I don't want her to get worried. I said, can we pass by my house? I live 5 minutes from here. I also had my wallet and money on it. I wanted to give it to my wife. So he was nice about it. He allowed me to go to the house. My wife saw me in the car, and she was like a wreck. But they gave her my wallet, my money, and that was the parole violation I got in. And that was a change of life experience for me, because that's when I was thrown in a hole. I became a person of faith. You already know that story. I'm not going to be redundant, but obviously that stands out. Another time that really stood out is not so much about me, and this wasn't really an arrest at that moment, but it's something that happened. When they were indicting me in the racketeering case in Brooklyn on this whole big gas RICO case, I was in California. My co-defendants, my crew, they were being arrested in New York. Now, it's 3 hours earlier in New York. So I get a call, from my guys, and they say, hey, everybody's getting arrested, Chief. So I'm out in California. I'm saying, man, they must be coming for me any minute. It was very early. So I leave. I didn't want to get arrested in California. I leave my house. Sure enough, maybe an hour later, all the agents show up. They knock on the door. My wife is there. She's young. She's, in her 20s. And she was there with her sister. And they said, where's your husband? And she said, I don't know, because she didn't know. I wouldn't tell her. I never let her know anything that she couldn't answer to truthfully. She said, where are you going? I said, never mind. I'm just going to go away. Let's see if they come to the house to arrest me also. So I'm kind of, hanging around someplace. And I actually was in a hotel that I had booked a room there. And sure enough, the agents were at the house. They were waiting for me. She told them, look, I don't know where my husband is. And they're waiting for me because they figure I'm going to come home at some point in time. And meanwhile, I get a call. I know that they're at the house, so I'm not going home. Now, the reason I didn't want to go back right away, because I didn't know if they were going to give me bail, if they were going to remand me. I didn't know what the story was, because I knew it was a big case. I wanted to get in touch with my lawyer, let him know that was happening, and see if he can make sure that I got bail if they locked me up, because you don't want to go in with no bail. So my wife, who knew I wasn't coming home, she wanted to see me before I left, because I had found out they also indicted me in Florida on another big racketeering case, so involving gas. So my thought was, let me go to Florida. I'll surrender to the Florida authorities. I'll get booked over there, and then I'll surrender to the feds in New York. And since I got bail in Florida, they'll probably give me bail with the feds. That was the plan. So I was going to head right to Florida. So my wife wanted to see me. So what does she do? Because they were guarding everything. She goes out. We lived in a second-story condo. She goes out by, not the fire escape, but I think it might have been a fire escape. I don't even remember. It was so long ago. And she goes out, and somehow she climbs over from the second floor, and she gets down to the bottom floor. She gets in the car. They're all out in front. They don't see her. And she drives to the motel to where I am. And, it was pretty rough because they could have followed her. She was very careful. She made sure nobody was following her at that time. She just wanted to see me. And obviously I wanted to see her, but I didn't want to get in trouble. I said, hey, be careful. Don't let them think that you're doing anything wrong. So she came to see me, and we got to spend, a couple of hours together. At that time, they were at the airport. They were everywhere looking for me, but this was before 9/11 happened. So what was she able to do? I bought a ticket in her brother's name. You could have done that back then because they weren't checking ID and all of that. So I buy the ticket, get on the plane. I go to Florida. I get booked down there, arrested, the whole big thing, a lot of publicity. And now the feds come and pick me up and take me back to Brooklyn. What happens in Brooklyn? You'll never guess the judge that they assigned to my case. They assigned Judge Jacob Mishler. In case some of you that are watching forget, that was the judge on my father's case, and he was the one that sentenced to my father to 50 years in prison. We had a long history with him. So I figured, wow, there's no way that this guy is going to give me bail because of my name. So they booked me, and as soon as my lawyer knew that it was the same judge, he went in and he asked the judge to recuse himself because of the fact that I had a long history with him. As a matter of fact, during my father's case at one time, when we had an appeal going, two agents had come to my office. I had a dealership at the time, and two agents came to my office, and they said, Franzese, you're under arrest. They put me in the car. They start to drive me around. I said, what am I arrested for? They said, well, we got some information that you were in a plot to kidnap Judge Mishler's daughter. I said, kidnap? I didn't even know he had a daughter. I didn't know anything about it. They must have created a story or got some phony nonsense. I said, you mean to tell me that you're going to be prejudicing the judge by telling him that I was in a plot to kidnap his daughter on the eve of my father's hearing? And they said, well, we had to inform the judge. What did the judge say? He said, well, he's not believing it, but he's not discounting it. I remember that like it was yesterday. So that was some of the tricks that they pulled at that time. So I could never go in front of this judge, according to my lawyer. The judge recuses himself. I get another judge, Judge Henderson Morrison, who happened to be the same judge that was trying the Gotti case. It was me and John in front of this judge. What do you think happens? This judge don't give me bail. They hold me as an economic danger to the community. I got no bail on the case. So that's obviously something that I remember. So, when you get arrested, some of them you remember, some of them you don't. My advice always, hey, they're going to arrest you, put your hands behind your back or put your hands out, let them cuff you, get in the car, go to the precinct, do whatever they got to do, and then you worry about getting out later on. That's the process. If you don't want to be in trouble or you don't want to have a confrontation with the police, that's the best thing to do. Trust me on that. So that's it for today. We're going to be back shortly. We got surprises coming up. Not going to tell you what they are right now, but michaelfranzese.com. Community keeps growing. Every week we're adding people. We're putting a lot more content in. I'm getting more involved. It's going to be terrific. People are loving it. As far as YouTube, thank you for keep subscribing. Every week we're bringing on more. I think we got over 160,000 right now, and it just keeps growing, and it's growing very rapidly, and that's because all of your support. So thank you very much for all of that. Be safe, be healthy. God bless you all. I'll see you next time.